Hello, Ergonauts everywhere, and welcome to Proof of Ergo, a newscast that focuses on everyone's favorite proof-of-work cryptocurrency. Of course, I'm talking about Ergo. Now, I know some of you out there may argue Bitcoin is your favorite proof-of-work crypto, but as far as features and programmability goes, Bitcoin doesn't hold a candle to Ergo, but we can get into that another day. This is episode 5, and we've got an exclusive interview with Ergodex Chief Product Officer Yasha Black. Swamp Music's Michael B. joins us for specifics on Swamp's recent IDO announcement and their tokenomics. Plus, we'll talk about Ergo Improvement Proposal 27, which recently went to miners for a vote and will soon go live. And finally, Ergohack wraps up week 3, how many projects made it, and what's next for them, all coming up this show. But before we get started, a quick reminder, you can listen to Proof of Ergo on your favorite podcast platform, some of whom, like Spotify, are now supporting video. So you can check us out on something other than YouTube. But if you're watching on YouTube, likes, subscribes, and comments are very much appreciated. Ergodex plans nothing less than to disrupt the entire blockchain space by bridging Cardano and Ergo. And that's just the beginning. Nothing comes close to the ambition the Ergodex team has displayed, from dipping its toes into options to yield farming slated for a Q3 release date. Our next guest, Yasha Black, is with Ergodex, the decentralized exchange of all exchanges on Ergo at the moment. They've been making headlines right and left about upcoming features imminently going live that promise to literally change the landscape of the ecosystem. Yasha, thank you so much for calling in today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great to be here.
So much to discuss and so little time. First, let's talk about Ergodex's rebranding. Why rebrand, and what do users need to know about it?
Yeah, for sure. We recently published an article where we touched on the problems of modern DeFi protocols. These problems can be divided into two broad categories. The first one is a poor user experience, which is caused by high transaction fees and low throughput of the layer 1 blockchains. And the second one is a poor capital efficiency, which is caused by mining extractable value, arbitrage, and liquidity segmentation, stuff like that. All of this siphons users' profits, and we aim to solve both of these problems with our layer 2 DeFi scaling solution. You can just read more in the description below. And therefore, the first reason for rebranding is a new vector of development, layer 2 solution. Yeah, on the other hand, we noticed that beginners often confuse Ergo and Ergodex. It seems that navigation in the ecosystem becomes more difficult when all of the projects use Ergo in their project name. And the ecosystem is already very complex, and we weekly introduce another level of complexity. So it's my opinion, and you may not agree with it. So not far to seek that even CoinMarketCap wrote an article about Ergodex where they talks about Ergo, but uses the name Ergodex. So they try to talk about Ergodex, but call Ergo and vice versa. And there's a bit confusing stuff, yeah. So of course we were very pleased by CoinMarketCap, but it seems that this is not right, okay? We decided that we need to get rid of misunderstanding and confusion in naming, yeah.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Now, will there be any new features planned as part of the rebrand?
No, rebranded is business part of the project, but yeah, sure. There are a lot of long-term and short-term features we're planning. We really want to focus on DeFi products in general and provide users with valuable tools in finance. So we will share the updated roadmap just right after the rebranding event, and I hope we will satisfy each one. So, but to develop all of these features and separate products, we will need an underlying technology that we have I have already mentioned. It's layer 2. Okay. So in short term, we would I would say that we will focus mostly on research and development of these layer 2 solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask you about DeFi and specifically yield farming. I understand Ergodex plans to go live with this feature in Q3. Can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, sure. We know that yield farming is a cool thing, but to implement this particular feature, we need a token, because you can't imagine yield farming without token. Yeah. So we actively researching the yield farming topic in order to provide users with the highest possible APY and maximum returns of this. And I almost forgot, there will be a small feature for projects. As a project, you will be able to create and launch your own liquidity farming program via just the Ergodex user interface. We guess that this feature will help projects attract more community attention and bring more value to the entire ecosystem. I think this feature is really cool. And I didn't see this feature in this space, even.
Now, recently, Ergodex went live with their new price charts, at least on the Ergo side of things, I should say. Will they have a public API? Is that even on the roadmap?
Okay. So we strive to be as open to our community as possible, as you know. Yeah, and the question, this question sounds like a request. And honestly, this is already an open API. Seems like we just need to add some documentation or stuff like that, so that people can just open a website and see how they can use the API. So yeah, it's already live, it's already public. We just need to add more docs for that. Yeah.
Awesome. That is incredible. Now, you mentioned CoinMarketCap earlier, and I'm curious, how is it going with them and CoinGecko having tracked listings?
Yeah, we sent applications to both services, and they are under consideration. So as soon as we rebrand and tokenize, we will increase activity in this direction. Because, for listing, you need a token, or to even talk with these services, you need a token. So after this milestone, we will continue discussion with these services. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, Yasha, for the $1 million question, can you update us on the Cardano Ergo bridge? When is it going to go live on mainnet?
When people ask when, I usually answer what? Yeah, you know the answer. So look, currently we're focusing on Cardano mainnets. It's not a secret. There are a few things to be done, like refunds, transaction history, and order tracker. Yeah, this is something we're focusing on right now. So after all of that, we will dive deeper into Rosen Bridge integration. I can't really say anything super excited about this particular integration. On the bridge side, I heard that everything is going pretty well. Recently, the guys from the Rosen Bridge team reported that they were almost done with the Cardano side of the bridge, and that is a really huge update from their team. So, but as I said before, we will move on to the integration task a little later after launch on Cardano mainnet.
Awesome. I cannot wait. It's going to just change how I invest. My personal plan is to use a portion of my Cardano staking rewards and just immediately turn it into Ergo with your exchange. I know you can already do that, but with some of the other services, but I'm just really looking forward to Ergodex. Yasha Black with Ergodex, thank you so much for calling in today, especially on such a short notice. I'd not survive without Ergodex, and I'm super excited to see all the features you've got planned. You're welcome anytime, Yasha, to come on the show, and please come back soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the invitation. It was awesome.
Be sure to check out the article Yasha mentioned called Spectrum, Scaling Ergodex Beyond Layer 1, which we'll link to in the description of this newscast. All right, next. It takes 90% consensus among Ergo miners to implement changes to the Ergo network. And that's exactly what miners did for Ergo Improvement Proposal 27, an adjustment to Ergo's emission schedule. Originally, all the Ergo to ever exist, just shy of 98 million, would be mined and minted within an 8-year period. At the end of that period, the network was to survive on transactions and rental fees. However, concern the network might not be ready to support such an ambitious emission schedule led Ergo's co-founder, Alex Chupernoy, also known as Kushti, to propose a new emission schedule that lays down 2 new rules. These new rules will ensure Ergo will continue to release block rewards until approximately 2045. And if you'd like more on the specifics, we've got some links in the description of this newscast that goes into more detail, so be sure to check those out. Decentralization makes many promises, taking power from the middleman and giving it back to the users. In fact, many blockchain advocates would say we can expect to see more and more businesses adopt a decentralized model as time goes on. Our next guest is wasting no time doing just that. He founded his own music label and is now bringing his roster of artists and fans from across the world to Ergo. Joining us today is Michael B., also known as Liquid Phase from Swamp Music. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Good to be here, James. Thanks for having me.
So how would you describe Swamp Music itself to a blockchain newbie?
Well, we're a music label and publisher, mostly of electronic music, but kind of in a wide array of styles of it. So we've kind of been publishing music for our own musicians and other musicians outside of our label to legacy platforms like Spotify, Tidal, and iTunes for almost 10 years, since 2013. We originally created it as sort of a safe space to explore new sound ideas and bridge the gaps between kind of like sonic exploration spaces and different genres of music. And so we kind of saw the blockchain space as a natural kind of evolution for our mission to kind of keep bridging gaps and expand and explore new spaces with what is possible with music. So in the blockchain space, we are just starting. And that is starting with the Ergohack development competition. And we have some goals there that we have accomplished. And we are going to continue growing the brand into the space and keep building tools for, to make the music industry in the blockchain space better.
Now, Michael, I'm curious, who is more important to Swamp Music, the artists or the listeners?
That's a good question. Both are, I think, equally important. You can't really have one without the other in this world, and have a system that works, so to speak. I can see how it might seem like we're only looking at the artist right now just because the Ergohack updates have been predominantly artist focused. I think that's probably because the tools for the artists have been so kind of unbalanced up until this time. There's not a lot of good tools out there for artists, so by focusing on that first, we think that it's going to naturally build value for the fans as well. So our real focus is making the experience better for both.
So what is Swamp Music doing that traditional record labels aren't already doing?
Well, I don't know of any other labels that are currently developing anything for blockchain. I know of some that are exploring blockchain tech and using like layer 2s on Ethereum and various different models, but I don't know of anything that's currently exploring designing solutions on the layer 1 for rights and royalty management. Most of it seems to be on the layer 2. And the layer 2 is really just another middleman, and we're trying to avoid the person that sits in between the musician and the fan at the end of the day.
So how is it all going to work then?
So we're going to remain a publisher and continue pushing out music and sound, allowing musicians that are on our platform to distribute both to the legacy platforms and to the decentralized space by offering them the tools that we develop for that space. And anyone that wants to adopt that beyond our own system, we're going to open source all the stuff that we make for NFTs and all of our web kind of content management system that we're working with, so that any label, musician, or publisher that is savvy enough or has a team behind them that can run that kind of system can do so.
So is Swamp Music going to be leaning on NFTs for the lion's share of what you're going to be doing overall?
No. NFTs are a space that we see a lot of. There's a lot that the NFT industry needs to learn from in music and media distribution. But likewise, I think that we need to learn a lot from it in terms of engaging fans and creating value and systems of value for people who are ultimately investing, right? These are the shareholders for the artist or the media. So we want there to be good value streams for both the artist and the fan. The NFT scene is a space that is lacking, so we're developing there now. But we are continuing to publish to legacy platforms such as Tidal and Spotify and all of those, because until IPFS makes some major adjustments, upgrades, or there's a lot more adoption of it, we just are not yet at the point where we have an IPFS Spotify. That is a goal of ours. So we are aiming to create that system and make it scalable and workable.
So how are the musicians going to fit in? How are they going to use Swamp Music?
Yeah, so musicians will be able to distribute music on our platform. They'll be able to create Patreon-style fundraiser events or Patreon-style subscription-based services for their I know musicians that make sample packs and release them every month, or a podcast and release it. So we're building out tools to where you can publish loops, samples, stems, single tracks, full albums, podcasts, basically any kind of media. And there's a lot of room there for musicians and other types of artists to kind of engage with their fans and create again, new systems of wealth generation for themselves without some sort of Swamp is aiming to go the decentralized autonomous route, and so we are not aiming to be a middleman where everything is going to be transparent and above the board. So at the very least, we're going to try to create better systems for the musician, and by doing so, again, engage the fans better and bring the artists and the fans closer together.
You mentioned a Patreon type experience. My next question was going to be about listeners and fans and how they were going to use Swamp Music, but I would just assume that it's going to kind of be that same experience where they would maybe subscribe to people they're very much interested in.
Sure. I think the possibilities are kind of limitless with how you can use blockchain and smart contracts. And so I really just want to focus on building the tools that are really focused on rights management and royalty distribution and tracking of media. Because at the end of the day, if you have an artist that makes a song, they want to know if it's played in Japan or in Australia or in Canada, because all those metrics will help them create their future products and boost their value internally. So, those metrics, yeah.
I did want to ask about copyright and intellectual property. How is that going to be handled? Will there be any digital rights management or DRM?
So DRM is a really tricky subject because on one hand you have rights organizations who protect the artist against the unauthorized use. So for instance, you have one artist that sings a song and then another artist who uses the entire vocal section of that song as a backtrack to their song. So in that instance, they would get served a cease and desist by the rights organization. So while there's cases for like remixing songs, generally speaking, it needs to be altered to a point where it's unrecognizable or just considered fair use derivative. So in this hand, the rights organizations do play a fair role in making sure the artist's vision is maintained to some degree. But then on the other hand, there's a lot of issues with DRM, such as, I watch Twitch streams all the time where, I watch a lot of piano players, and someone who's playing Beethoven or Bach can literally be muted while they're playing it because some record label out there thinks they own Beethoven and they're not allowed to play it on their own piano. And that's an algorithm that's recognizing that. And it's, they could fight that algorithm and win, but to fight that algorithm, it's like, how worth it is that of your time for one performance or two performances? So a lot of people are just not, caring so much about the DRM space, but it's been kind of a very tricky subject in media for a long time. You have services like Spotify that launched, and since their launch, most piracy has gone away for music. You still get piracy, but really a lot of that has gone down because people can just pay $10 a month and hear everything that they want. And so you would think that that's kind of a good thing for the artists, but if everyone is streaming music for $10 a month, then that means no one is buying the album for $10 a month or $10 at all. So there has to be a middle ground in between there. We think that there is, and we think that it exists in the decentralized space. So that's why we're tackling this right now. That's why we're exploring here. There's transparency and flexibility to non-fungible media, and we seem like it's a really pertinent area to explore to create these better solutions, or to at least start the conversation about how we can start creating more value in the musical space.
Let's talk about pricing models, because I was looking at your website, and I think this is really innovative as far as like streaming goes, offering the 320 bit rate versus the lossless audio files, and distinguishing between big and small venues. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Sure, yeah. So most of these streaming platforms are going to have either a free tier or a cheap tier that's going to give you 96 kilobytes per second or 120 kilobytes per second streaming. And in layman's terms, that's basically how much resolution the sound has. It's like looking at a small pixelated JPEG versus looking at a big high resolution portrait. So for most people, that's fine. They're listening on their little earbuds and they don't really, care so much about that. But there's, large swaths of music fans out there who that is not a good quality. Not good enough for their headphones, not good enough for their sound systems. Big venues, anyone that's looking to DJ a set or play high resolution audio for the backing to a concert symphony or something like that, you can't use MP3s for that. It's just going to sound horrible. So we think that MP3s have value in the everyday listener, and we think that for them we should provide the highest quality MP3 we can for free. And the reason there is, people can get these, through piracy. They can YouTube it, they can Spotify it. They're going to hear it regardless. And so we want them to hear the best version of it that they can, versus still maintaining value for the musician who produced that by serving the lossless files for profit models.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. That's a great philosophy and way to do business. Now, your team is growing. What are your plans for Swamp Music over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, so we just brought on a marketing lead who has done some great work for companies like eBay and StubHub, and a full stack front end developer who has done a lot of work with jQuery and JavaScript and Ruby. So, we're going to continue building tools and not stop. We're going to continue open sourcing our tools and not stop, and continue to just grow this community grassroots, and just keep adding value. The 5-year plan is a lot more visible than a 10-year or 15-year plan, just because you don't know how technology is going to change. But as technology changes, we want to keep developing systems and frameworks and standards so that the artist and the fans are protected. Because right now, there's just a lot of value being siphoned out of the music industry, and it's not going to the musicians. So that's our mission.
Talk about Swamp Music's initial decentralized exchange offering, your IDO. When is it, and what do folks out there need to know?
Yeah, so we were approached by ErgoPad, and so we're doing the project launch through ErgoPad. And so we have the staker round snapshot happening. The actual snapshot happens on the 13th of June, and then the contribution period for the staker round begins on the 19th, so about 1 week after that. So our token is called Terahertz, and there's going to be an initial, or a max supply, of 40 million. And it's going to be our own like layer 2 currency to use on the platform, where you can stake to musicians and provide direct sales to musicians using that currency.
All right, can you explain more on the tokenomics to us?
Yeah, so Terahertz token will be able to, be able to stake it on the platform, and how much you stake. If you're paying $10 a month to Spotify right now, that $10 is distributed amongst all the artists out there, and the people who are more popular get more of it. So what we want to happen is, if you stake $10 to the platform and you listen to 10 artists, we want those 10 artists to get the majority of what you stake to the platform minus the fees, to initiate all the layer 2 stuff to make it happen fast. Because that's the one benefit of having a layer 2, is that you can transact a lot faster than something like Ergo, which has the 2-minute block time. So by staking liquidity to pool, we're going to increase value for stakeholders and liquidity providers, but we're also going to allow musicians to create their own individual pools, like for the Patreon style things we mentioned before, as well as if they want to start doing fundraisers or charity style events, we can start creating kind of custom pools for that. So we're really still exploring that. That's still a new focus for us, and how we can explore this new use of smart contracts for royalties tracking. And so sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, and it sounds super, super innovative. Michael B., lead developer of Swamp Music, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'd love to catch up in the future and check in on this project.
Yeah, James, thanks for having me. It's been an honor.
Be sure to check out the description of this newscast for all sorts of Swamp Music info, including links to their social media pages and their IDO page with ErgoPad. All right, so last week concluded Ergohack Fest's 3-week schedule, and judges are now deliberating and working out which teams will win what. Judges are considering some 14 different projects, to include Michael B.'s project, who we heard from just a few minutes ago. And if you'd like to learn more about the different projects that competed in this Ergohack Fest, we're including a link to a blog post detailing the progress of each team into this final week. So be sure and check that out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this 5th episode of Proof of Ergo. We sure do appreciate you tuning in. And special thanks to ErgoPad and their team, sponsors of Proof of Ergo, without whom this show just would not be possible. You can learn more about ErgoPad, this Ergo Launchpad, by checking out their website, ergopad.io. I'm James Kever. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next Proof of Ergo.